Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. The Texas Major is fast approaching, and for OpTic Texas to have any decent chance of retaining the title they won there in 2022, they'll have to have a good final week of qualifiers coming up this weekend. They play FaZe on Sunday, a team that's undefeated in their last 11 search and destroys they've played. OpTic will likely need to break that record to win the series, and if so, could Dashy be the key man to do so, with him potentially picking up the sniper rifle on this roster in place of iLLeY, who was replaced not long ago. Very much enjoyed your thoughts and comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Some mad news to discuss actually to start off the video here, with the Olympics deciding to bring esports into the Olympic Games. I don't know what's going on here. I don't even know why they feel like this is necessary. But if you're going to do esports at the Olympics, which is already a questionable concept, at least try it properly, right? I mean, this is the meme that was going around yesterday. Like, Olympics is like, League of Legends, Dota, CS. No, we don't like those esports. Maybe Call of Duty, right? Maybe the CDL, maybe like FIFA or something weird like that. But no, we're doing tennis, we're doing Just Dance and virtual regatta, which I don't exactly know what that is. Maybe it's like sailing or something, because there is sailing involved right here. So these are the Olympics esports games they are playing. Now, it's honestly madness, to be honest. And I know this got a lot of traction because people were like, what is actually going on? They did a promotional video here, I think, where someone was on a bus playing like an archery game on their phone. I'm like, what are the input devices we're using here? I also think chess is such an interesting one, because if you're going to do chess at the Olympics, which already is questionable enough, as all of these are, like, why not just do it in real life? You know what I mean? Like, why not just use an actual board? Why do I have to want to play it over a computer or something? Like, I don't really understand that. There's also already a chess tournament called the Olympiad that they play every year anyway, with like different countries and stuff, I believe. So I don't really know what the point of that is. Cycling on your, like, how are you going to okay, I don't understand. It's basically Wii Sports, as far as I can determine here. And then maybe esports at the Olympics will fail, and then they'll think, oh, esports, no one ever interested in esports, let's just shut the program down. We tried, guys, we tried to do esports in the Olympics. I just don't really get it. Now, look, in fairness, the X Games a few years ago was such a cool thing that Call of Duty did at the time for a couple of years in a row, and they eventually, shut that down and moved on, but it was pretty cool to happen. And just the idea in general of like an Olympic Games for Call of Duty it's a bit tricky, right? Because at least for these sports, I guess, well, sports, right? I guess what they're getting at here is that, it's going to be potentially more countries involved. So if you did Call of Duty esports at the Olympics, you can have, okay, a team from the US, you could have a team from Canada, okay, you could have a few countries that would attend, but it wouldn't be like a worldwide sport like I guess they want to achieve. So I guess that's what they're thinking. Also, Taekwondo, like, what's going on there? I don't understand how you're making that work from an esports perspective, to be honest. And as Attach says, you need to add Cold Modern Warfare too. So I guess their point is, right, they're doing like normal esports, which is the only way that people are actually going to watch this stuff, but whatever. You can't really have the global appeal, maybe. Okay, a game like Counter-Strike, you might be able to. There's some potential there. But yeah, I don't really understand. If you're going to do esports at the Olympics, like, at least try and do it properly. But the motorsport one is kind of interesting here, actually, just because, yes, motorsport, and also dance, right, was being talked about, like Arcitys getting the Just Dance tourney. So could Bance, right? Of course, there was some, clips of Bance having a good time on when he was on Toronto and also on the Minnesota Rokkr more recently than that. And then there's also the motorsport gold medal up for grabs. Now, it's, unclear exactly how this is done. What game is it played on? Like, we don't really know. But yeah, maybe we could send Crimsix, right? So at least we have some representation here. So yeah, a bit of a mad one, to be honest. I don't think it's something we should expect to be having COD at the Olympics or anything. Maybe there's too many issues with that even being the case in the first place. And, they probably don't want to do Counter-Strike because, T's, CTs, all this stuff. Like, they probably don't want those terminologies being used on the Olympics. And so, things get a little bit complicated. But we would like to have a World Cup would be fun. I think, like, if Activision put it on as they did for, I think, the Overwatch League a few years ago in Call of Duty, that would be much better than what the Olympics are trying to achieve here with their new esports program they're trying to bring in. But yeah, Crim has maybe been planning for this for years with, okay, no, actually it's going to be on Gran Turismo. They do make it clear that, race to the checkered flag on Gran Turismo. So, okay, fair enough. Crim's getting involved. He knew what he was doing the whole time. And maybe we can send him to the Olympics. That'd be pretty entertaining. A couple of roster things just to mention for you guys. Mohawk is going to step back from competing to kind of focus on his mental health. Tough thing for Mohawk the last couple of years, right? He won the last 2 in a row, back-to-back World Championship victories in challenges, right? And he failed to get on a pro team as a result. There's been many arguments either way as to exactly why he wasn't getting on a pro team, and that's been quite a difficult question to answer, to be honest. But so far this season, I think he started out the season on a not particularly good team, therefore lacking in pro points, therefore can't get a great team, and it's just a bit of a struggle, right? So Mohawk's going to step back for now. Hopefully next year maybe he can come back, or, you know, it's tricky, right? If you win back-to-back challenges champs and don't get picked up by the league, it's like, well, you know, what's the point anymore, I suppose? Which I can understand when Mohawk feels like taking a step back from competing right now might be the way to go. Also, they've been rated quickly, because we mentioned rated a few times over the last few days that he is interested in potentially returning to CDL action at some point, and he's looking to run the Challengers Cup this weekend, looking for a couple of SMGs to join him on the roster. So that's pretty exciting stuff. We'll be keeping up to date on his particular stage of progress. Let's talk then about some of the matches that will happen this weekend. A big weekend for Vegas, of course. They played 2 winnable series against Guerrillas and Rokkr. If they win one of those 2 series, they should be in a good spot to qualify for the winners bracket, with a lot of other teams struggling right now in terms of map counts in the losers side. OpTic will also, they should be fine. They're 2-1 right now. They do play 2 very challenging games, and we saw even going into the set of qualifiers here that Vegas and OpTic probably had the 2 hardest set of matches. OpTic have their 2 hardest set of matches last. I think as it turns out, Vegas have kind of got over their, you know, harder set of matches. Against FaZe, I think they lost 2 last time out, and then they beat Toronto, or they beat Thieves, sorry, and they lost to Toronto, I believe. So, like, Vegas have got over their harder games. OpTic have their harder games to come, but nonetheless, they've got to, you know, do pretty well this weekend, OpTic, because if they do lose both those games and end up in the 7th or 8th seed, they might well play FaZe round 1 of their own major, which wouldn't be optimal, given that, you know, you want to have an easier game round 1 if you can potentially avoid it. That might come down to beating FaZe again. Now, we know full well that OpTic versus FaZe, even when we saw them play so far this season, Dashy was the difference maker. That crazy series that he had individually, the shutdown they made on the hard point, and then winning the final search and destroy as well in pretty close fashion. OpTic have had FaZe's number really the last couple of years. Like, obviously OpTic, when they built that team at the start of Vanguard, were intending to stop the FaZe dominance of the previous season. They achieved that at their home major right at the start of March, actually, as it was back then for Major 1 in the Vanguard season. Now, Dashy's also got a fresh cut as well, so he's definitely going to be coming different this weekend regardless. But also the question to me comes down to the search and destroy and to the sniper rifle situation. We haven't seen too much sniping action really from the OpTic guys since iLLeY left. It was a key piece really of their play in the first part of the season. Then when iLLeY left the team and Ghosty came in, Dashy was asking the question, would he run the snipe? Would Dashy run the snipe? And said both of them kind of like to use it, but it seems like the last few days, at least in you know, online play that he's done in ranked and such, that Dashy on the sniper rifle is potentially the way they're going to go. Been popping some nice clips as usual. I'm sure he's feeling pretty good with it right now, and it may be a key difference maker, because we haven't really seen OpTic use it too much in their search and destroys lately. Obviously it's map specific as well, but when they play FaZe this weekend, FaZe might well at that point still be on their crazy search and destroy winning streak they're currently on, breaking the CDL record last weekend with 11 S&D wins in a row. And, you know, are OpTic going to beat FaZe 3-1 losing the search? It's possible, but, you know, to win that series, you think you probably have to beat them in a search more than likely and break that record and break that streak they are presently on. So Dashy on the sniper could be a key piece of the puzzle.
The gun down. Is there any ARs down anywhere?
Luggage.
Come
Nice.
get there.
Is he below us?
No, he's...
Gun.
There's ARs down here.
One guy's top cat. He saw me cross. Dead.
Oh my god!
You can get that gun bottom if you need it.
Right there. Okay.
I have it across. He's on bomb. Got me. Oh my god.
Is luggage open?
Yes.
Wow.
Shit.
So who do you guys think is the optimal replacement there for iLLeY? Because arguably when iLLeY was on the team, he was probably the best sniper in the game, you could argue. They were using the sniper quite a lot in their defensive rounds, and there was an argument to say that maybe iLLeY shouldn't be the one to snipe just because, you know, at times he pulled it out too often, right? And I think he used it for too long, and there were some frustrations from some OpTic fans. You can understand why. Some situations where iLLeY would keep the sniper out every round, would use it in round 11 on offense, it wouldn't work out, and it was kind of frustrating to watch at times. But on an individual level, iLLeY was frying with the sniper. Now, in general, a lot of teams have put it away a little bit lately and haven't been using the sniper rifle quite so much in search and destroy. It's also key, I think, for OpTic that one of their ARs use it. You don't want to restrict the play of Shotzzy and Huke to run around the map and get bloods and stuff. Like, you want one of your ARs to use it. And look, in fairness, Dashy has been very good on the tac so far this year, but maybe he's even better on the sniper rifle and can be more impactful, and just doing something to throw off the opposition if they are FaZe, which they will be on Sunday, right? We know that for sure. Then, you know, might be beneficial to this team in theory. So They do play on Sunday, as we've mentioned before, that since, of course, these guys don't scrim each other at all, so the only time they play Search and Destroy or anything against each other is in proper matches like this will happen here on Sunday. I think it's the second game of the Sunday schedule, but it's always a big one when OpTic play FaZe, of course. FaZe, I guess, might go in as marginal favourites here, given the latest situation, but it depends what OpTic do, I guess, on Saturday against New York. If they beat them, then obviously it could be a different story, but FaZe on their S&D run, that's going to be hard to stop, but it will eventually come to a stop. We saw at the start of the season, London were actually really good in Search for a period of a couple of weeks, then that fell off a cliff massively. Vegas in a similar boat. They dominated Search for quite some time, were, you know, winning game 5s off of it, made a good run at Major 1 because of their Search and Destroy. That fell off significantly. Now, FaZe have a style in Search. We know how Slasher likes to play Search. He likes to wrap them up. He's been doing the same thing, Slasher, for several years, or like even almost a decade at this point, to be honest. But nonetheless, it still works out, and they're on, well, he broke his own records from last season's Los Angeles Guerrillas record of about 10 Search and Destroys in a row. Now he's got to 11 in a row on FaZe, and without that, I don't think FaZe win Major 2. Like, FaZe's respawn is not particularly, well, it's very good, obviously, they're FaZe, but it's not as good as their Search and Destroy. And if you can start beating them in Search and Destroys on a 50-50 basis, FaZe are definitely gettable at. They might be the S-tier team right now, and I think for good reason, but that's the way that OpTic win this series, and that's also the way that historically OpTic have beaten FaZe in recent memory, is to beat them game 5. Like, how many series do you remember where OpTic will beat FaZe in 3 or 4? Like, it's usually always a game 5 between these two, and that's where FaZe have been so good lately. But Dashy Sniping on that level that we've seen from him, and of course in previous titles, we've seen Dashy and Simp. You guys might remember the great Black Ops 4 season we had with Dashy on the OpTic team, Simp on the United team. Like, there was some crazy back and forth. I think on Arsenal, they like traded a snipe at one point as well, but Simp doesn't really snipe anymore. I'm sure he'd be incredibly good at it, but you can understand why not in a 4v4 game where, as I say, you kind of need your SMG player to have their gun out to actually, you know, take map position and take chows. You can't really afford to let Simp sit there on the sniper rifle, which means that really they don't use it on FaZe. They don't really use a sniper generally, and it's working out for them, and they're on this S&D win streak. But to break that, you might need to put them out of their comfort zone and try something different. Speaking of FaZe, wanted to mention some interesting stats before we close out the video here. So FaZe, I mean, actually Slasher, in terms of the stats, has been FaZe's most effective player so far in the qualifiers. His overall KD is a 1.21. S&D KD is number 1 in the league at a 1.8. So, I mean, this is the thing, right? If OpTic want to beat FaZe, they're going to have to shut down Slasher. His first blood rate, his kills per round is very high. Control KD is also number 1 at a 1.56. So, you know, I know there's people that said that Slasher wouldn't provide any more slaying power than Arcitys. Not sure I necessarily agree with that one, and he's actually been incredibly good so far here in Major 3. So, yeah, FaZe could go back-to-back, but OpTic will try and shut them down, not just online, and could obviously try and send a message as well for the LAN play as well. Now, of course, Cellium statistically has been their best player this year, overall KD of a 1.23. Like, he's top 5 in all the game modes, even like number 1 in hard, but number 2 in control. It's pretty unbelievable, to be honest. But look, if there's going to be an MVP this year, and if it is going to be for FaZe, I think you've got to give it to aBeZy. Honestly, it's about time. If FaZe do win a couple more events and like not dominate the season, but do a pretty good job this season, like aBeZy is, I think, deserving of one of these MVP awards, because back in Cold War, he was so close to winning it. I thought it was super toss-up for me between Simp and aBeZy. Simp got the nod that year. Cellium got the nod last year, even though aBeZy wasn't really in conversation, so it would make sense. But if you think about it, for 4 years of the CDL, to have gone Shotzzy MVP, then Simp, then Cellium, then aBeZy, like, you know, that would be quite something for FaZe to achieve. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.